This is Gemara Baba Kama Daf Samoch Gimel learning for the month. The month of Teves has been generously sponsored as a Schos Alias Nishama for Yalib Ben Yaakov V'Siyata Dishmaya. As we're embarking on a new parak that we began yesterday, the Schos HaTorah should bring Aryeh Ben Yaakov higher and higher in Gan Eden Shel Maila. We're holding on Samach Beis Amid Beis. And yesterday we began learning the first din in the Mishnah that Midas Tashlumei Kefel is Meruba. Why is it Meruba? Why are there more instances of Kefel? Because it is noyeg, it is relevant both by movables and by living entities, whereas Tashlumei Dalad Vehei is only by Shar Chamar, Shar V'seh, etc. So we asked, where do we know that it's relevant? Minani Mili. So we learned the klal uprat uklal. Al kol devar pesha was a klal. Al shar v'chamar al seh was a prat. Al kol aveda was a klal. Klal uprat uklal. Everything that is similar to the klal, and this comes to exclude things which are not similar, things which are not gufay mammon like shtar, things which are not metaltalin like karkais, and that which is daimet karka, which is avodim. On that asks the Gemara, 1 second, Ima haprat, mefurash, 4 lines to the bottom, davar shen vilasa mitami b'mago b'masa. The things that were specific, which again were shar, chamar, seh, and salma. These are entities in which the carcass transmits toma via touching and lifting, avkol davar, So to anything, says the Gemara, shenveilasai metama b'magva masa. However, what should be excluded? Aval. However, oifais, when it comes to birds, when it comes to a non-shar v'seh, an item which is not mitame b'mago b'masa, which of course is an oif, aval oifais lai. Answers the Gemara, 1 second. Umi matis amrit. Can you really say hachi? This. Vasalma kisev, which I'm sure was something which was bothering everyone, as we know that the Torah said shar chamar and salma. What do you mean salma doesn't have this same detail? That is something which is neveilasa mitamu magu masa. Says the Gemara, Amri, they responded, Anan b'balei chayim kamrinon. We're dealing with the balei chayim. So, ema b'balei chayim, with regard to balei chayim, and that's the reason why oifai should be excluded. Says the Gemara, what is the reason why oifais lemaisa would be excluded? Kol chad v'chad, each and every word in the pasuk is klal uprat ba'apei nafshay, says the Gemara. And this is really going into the depth of how klal uprat uklal works. Explains the Gemara that each word in the pasuk should have its own klal uprat. And that is how we're going to figure out that it's not going to include oifais. This is the kasha of the Gemara. The kol chad v'chad, each and every one, klal uprat v'apei nafshe, is its own klal uprat darshinan lei, and therefore, because of that, aval oifais lei. So the Tab Rashi comes along, and Rashi explains to us that kalaymar, hey chadiko prati yiseri, meaning Rashi's honing in the kalaymar. This isn't the obvious pshat, because normally a klal uprat to klal, but over here we have excess, we have additional klal uprat, we have additional pratim. So hey chadiko prati yiseri kol chad v'chad marbi ke'edidei. Each one has the ability to be marbet, to include that which is similar to itself. And we do not darsh them all together. So explains Rashi that what's going on over here, because the Torah had excessive pratim. Shar, se, silma, samla, simla. There's an additional prat. Therefore, we could darshan from it. Avol oifais as each one is going to be unique, and therefore all the animals that were listed, shar chamar se, are similar, that they're metame b'mag b'masa. But ask the Gemara oifais loy. Answers the Gemara imkain. If this is true, nechta rachman achad prata. Torah should have just said one. Why does they shar chamar and say? You're telling me that each one teaches me something. So to say one, and it will teach us this din. Says the Gemara, true, but hey nechta rachmana. Which one could the Torah have written? Because rachmana shar have amina karav legav mizbeach in shei karav legav mizbeach loy. Because Rachman Chamar, Avamina Kaddish B'Chayra, the special din of Kedushas B'Char and B'Char, but Dibet Chamar in Shein Kaddish B'Chayra Loi. Amri Imkein Rachman Shar V'Chamar. So say just those two. Sel Amali Shema Mina Lasuye Oifai. So the extra inclusion of says is going to be Marbe Oifais. Says the Gemara, 1 minute. If you're coming to Marbe, 10 lines down, the first word in line is Ve'ema Lasuye Oifais to hire him. If the word se is coming to be marbe, so let it be marbe dom yodiseh, similar to itself. So only oifais tahirin, which are what? Dimitame bigadim abeis abliyah, which have the specific and unique din that the dead bird, which is tahar, gives off tumah to his clothing via the base abliya, via the throat. Aval oifais tameim delazmu tama delay mitami begadim abeis abliya lay. So says the Gemara, if it's really coming from the extra se, that the se is coming to marbe, and shar v'chamar is one entity, and says marbe oifais, let it be marbe bedavka oifais tameim. Answers the Gemara, no, kol is ribu yehu. Kol is coming to add on, and therefore it's going to add on not only oifais to hayrim, but even oifais to meim. Ask the Gemara about 12 lines down. The first word line is v'chol. V'cholecha de kasev kol ribuyahu. Is that true? That the word kol is a riboy. V'hagabi meiser, with regard to meiser, d'chsev kol, v'kodarshani lei, v'klalu prat. By meiser, it says kol. And we darshan with a klal uprat, meaning even though there's the word kol, still it's limited by the klal uprat, and we do not allow the kol just to be marb everything. Tanya is learned in a brayso with regard to meiser klal. Babakar about son cattle and sheep yainu v'sheichar, wine and beer prat is a specific. Whatever you want, your soul wants. Chazru klal, klalu prada, klal yadanik leina brat, ma bread mefurash, primi privi gedule karka. Avkom primi privi gedule karka. So as the Gemara, we see that even though it says the word kol by meiser, still the brayso limits meiser to the prat. And so asks the Gemara, maybe by us it should be just oifais to hirim, and the word kol should not be marbe. So Amri, they answered, bechol klala. Bechol, that's true, that's a klal. But kol, which is by us, is a rebuya, and that is teretz number 1. So teretz number 1, how we know that oifais are included in our drasha. In what drasha? This goes back to Samuch Beis Amid Beis, into the drasha of Tashlumei Kefel, not just oifais to hirim, but even oifais to meim, is because it says kol, which breaks the rules that even though seh, you would think is only being marbe oifais to hirim, but kol, because it's betame beis abliya, but kol is marbe everything. Says the Gemara, v'bayisema, another teret, kol is also klalahu. Miu kol da'acharibu. Our kol, the kol by us, by kefel, is different. Why? Explains the Gemara. Mechti, ksiv meikara klalu pradu klal. It already has said klalu pradu klal d'chsev, as the pasuk says. Ki tenesh alreyu klal. One man gives his friend as a klal. Kasavai Kalim is a prat. Lishmar, to guard, hadar uklal. So says the Gemara already have a klal, uprat uklal. And therefore, V'is al gedaita chai al kol davar pesha nami lichlal upradu da'asa. So then, nichtar achman al-hani brati gabiheich klal gabiheich. Then the Torah should have written the klal upradu klal gabiheich klal uprat with by the other one. Al kol davar pesha lamali. So therefore, mineyu brei, we could prove that ribu yehu. So two different ways of coming to learn that it's not just oifais to hire him, which are going to be dummy to seh, but even oifais timeim, either it's kol or it's this extra reboy from within the klalu prat itself. Continues the Gemara, 6 lines from the bottom. First one line is ribu yehu hashta di amrit. So now that you're telling me kol is ribuya, kol hani brati lama li the obvious kasha. What's kol comes to be marbesh kayach. So why did the Torah have to say shor, chamor, seh? What's it doing? Because we have kol, and kol is marbe that this kefel in all the cases of living animals. Says the Gemara, as we saw yesterday to end this year, chal lemute karka, chal lemute avodim, chal lemute shtarois. Says the Gemara, sal, mother pasuk says a garment. Lemute davar she'enu mesuyam comes to exclude something which is not identifiable. Al kol aveda lichtrav barava. So again, one, we have 3 klal product klal. We actually shar chamar and seh to be mamayi karka avodim and shtarois. Salma comes to be mamayi something that's not identifiable. Al kol aveda is for Rav Chia barava. Damar Rav Chia barava on the last line. Omar Rav Yechon Atayin Dainis Ganev Beganev Atayin Dainis Ganev Be'aveda. If someone claims that an aveda, the item that he lost, someone claims that it was stolen, and then we find out that it's true, it was stolen, but he himself was the culprit, he stole it. What's the halacha? Says the Bryce of the top line of Samugim Lamabes. Mishar Tashlume Kefer. How do I know? Shenemar Al Kol Aveda Asher Yoimar. And that ends part 1 of today's shiur, which is really wrapping up yesterday's shiur, which is the Meruba, which is the addition, the more dinim of Kefel, more inclusive over Shar Chamar of Daled Vehei, because it's all living entities. How we learn it out, Klal Pradu Klal, Kol coming to be Marbe, Filu Oifais Tameim, the extra Klal Prad coming to be Marbe as well. And why do we need the Klal Pradu Klal once we have Kol to be Mimayet Avodim Shtarais, items which are not Mesuyam, and the din of Tayin Tanis Ganav. Continues the Gemara, Tinan Hasam on the second line as we morph over the dinim of Shaimer with regard to Kefel. Heichon Pikdaini. The Mishnah says with regard to the Shaimer that he is asked, where is my Pikadain? And we'll see, we're talking about a Shaimer Chinam, a watchman which is not paid, and he's now asked for his item back. Amar le'avad, it was lost. Mashbiachani, and he says, the owner says, so swear. V'amar amin, I will swear. V'eidim testify that he ate it. Mishalem esakaren, he has to pay for the principal. Hoidal biatzmai, if he admits by himself, Mishalem, then he pays keren v'chaimesh v'oshan. So case number 1 of the Braisa, if he makes a shvuah, and then they find out that it wasn't a correct shvuah, that he himself ate it, he just pays the keren. Whereas if he admits on his own that he swore falsely, meaning Haidal piatzmai after the shvuah, not that Eidim came along, then he pays keren chaimesh and asham. Continues case number 2. In this case, a similar case, but the Shemer doesn't say it was lost, but he says that it was. But he says it was stolen. Heichan pikdaini. He's asked, where is my pikadain? Amar lai nignav. It was stolen. Mashbiachani. He has to make a shvuah of Amar amein, and he makes the shvuah. Va'edim eden. I say the edim. That's why shenignav that he himself was the culprit. Mishalim tashlume kefel, as every tayin is kanif. Hoidemi atzmai. Mishalim keren v'chaimesh v'ashan. End of Mishnah. Says the Gemara Ketani Miho, what do we see? B'tayin tanis ganev mishalim tashlumei kefel avol b'tayin tanis ovad loy mishalim tashlumei kefel va'afilu tayin tanis ganev, and even in the case where he claims it was stolen, b'shvua only hu de mishalim tashlumei kefel avol shalei b'shvua inu mishalim tashlumei kefel. So quantifies the Gemara that the dinim of kefel only apply, number one, by a tayin tanis ganev, and number two, only where he makes a false shvua. So the Gemara now wants to know, where do we know this from? We have a defining difference between tayin tanis ganev and tayin tanis ovad. And even within tayin tanis ganev, which again means one claims it was stolen, but he is the one that indeed took it, even within that we see that the only time that you would pay kefil is if you swore falsely, says the Gemara Minani Mili. What is the source? And the source will take us for the duration of the day. Tetanu Rabbanan, says the Braisa. Im Yimati Aganev, on the fifth Y line, if you find the Ganev. B'tayin tanis ganev akasa midaber, the pasuk is talking about one who claims item was stolen. Atayim, every tayin tanis ganev, you're telling me it's referring to tayin tanis ganev. Oye noi, or perhaps ela b'gainev atzmoi, or maybe it's talking about now where he claimed it was stolen, but maybe it's talking about where he himself stole it. Again, this is the Makar, so we're looking for the source in the Torah, so it has to be talking about Tayin, that he claimed it was stolen, but maybe it's just talking about where he himself stole it. Kishaoimer, and the pasuk says, Im lo yimotzi haganov. The pasuk says explicitly, the Ganav has to be kefil. So then we already know the Ganav pays kefil. So why did the pasuk have to say yimotzi haganav another time? B'tayin tanas ganav akasa midaber. Must be the first thing is referring to b'tayin tanis ganev. That is source number one. Tani either we have another braysi matzi ganev beganav atzo kasu b'taber ataymer beganav atzmo yoyeno yel b'tayin tanis ganev kshoimer. So when you say yim leyimatzi ganev or tayin tanis gavomer hamani mekayim yimatzi ganev beganav atzmo kasu b'taber. So we have two different brayses, each coming to the same conclusion that by tayin tanis ganev is when there is kefil. But says the Gemara, de kule alma mios. Both the braysos are in agreement that what? Im lo yimotzi ganev tayin tanis ganev ksiv. So my mashma, says the Gemara. How do we know that? Where do we see im lo yimotzi ganev is not referring to the ganev himself, but rather one who claims it was stolen? Says the Gemara, Amar Rav lo yimotzi kamasha Amar. What does it mean? If it's not found, means kimash amar, as he said, meaning it's not found like he said it was stolen. So we see him, he's talking about someone saying something, and we didn't find it like he's saying. We didn't find it tayin tanis ganev. Elo, rather, what did we find? What was the end of the story? Shuatz my ganvai, then yishalem shnayim. So that is Makar number one, Im lo yimatze, which you would think means you didn't find the Ganav. Says the Gemara, no, says Rav, Im lo yimatze, if you didn't find like he claimed, the story wasn't like he suggested, it wasn't that the Ganav stole it, then Yishalim Shnayim. And now, Makar number two that we're looking for is what? Uminale divishvua. And where do we know by tayin tanis ganev? It's only if he swore falsely. Titania, we learned in a brayso, v'nigra b'alavayis elho Elohim. This is referring to the bezdin. Elohim is the bezdin. The balabayis comes to court l'shvua, ta'imer l'shvua. Or in aladin, how do you know it means to come to swear? Maybe this means for the Torah. Namar shlichas yad lematav, namar shlichas yad lemalo. So says the Gemara, we have a classical gzeira shava with the word shlichas yad, using the item which is said by a shomer sachar to shlichas yad, which is said by a shomer chinam. Malhalo nishvua afkan lishvua, says the Gemara, that is a merkar, that the only time there's going to be kefel by tayin tanis ganev is with a shvua. So says the Gemara, bishlama. Let's go back. We had two psukim in those two braisas, in lo yimatze ganev, referring to finding the ganev paying kefel, and referring to one tayin tanis ganev paying kefel. Says the Gemara, about 13 lines to the bottom. The first one line is bishlama. Bishlama leman damar chad beganev cham tayin tanis ganev. Hainu chsev trei kroi. So according to the first brayso, one is by ganov, one is by claiming in a ganov. That's what we need to psukim. They're both talking about taking down his gav trey kroy lamali. Why? Excuse me, this is the first Tana. Why do we need two psukim? Says the Gemara. Amri chal mutei tanis avad. One is going to exclude. So one includes tying down his ganav. One excludes, as we saw, that if one claims who is stolen, there's no tashlume kefel. Says the Gemara, Laman Damar Chad v'Ganav v'Chav v'Tayin Tanis Ganav. According to the Man Damar that says one is by a Ganav and one is by a Tayin Tanis Ganav. The second time of the Bright says Ulamiyat Lamute Tanis Avad. Minale, where do we know to exclude when he claims it was stole? Says the Gemara, Mi Ganav Ha Ganav. Comes the fact that the pasuk could have said Ganav. Why did it say Ha Ganav? The extra Hey idea comes to exclude claiming it was lost. Ask the Gemara further. That first Tana, Avad, and he says that the second pasuk is coming to exclude claiming it was lost. So Ganav ha Ganav my darshve. What does it do with the extra hey? For a different Joshua. On 10 lines to the bottom, the first word line is Yochanan. I'm sorry, I lost my highlighter. There it is. Hi, Toyin Dan is Ganav Bipi Kadoin. Mishanta Shlumi Kefel. Says your Chibar name Rav Yochanan. If someone claims Toyin Dan is Ganav by Pi Kadoin, this is Kefel. Whereas if it's stolen or slaughtered or sold, then you pay 4 or 5. Says the Gemara, okay. The second Tana of the Braisa, so what's extra hey coming for? The extra hey Haganav comes to Skubanat Tanis Avad. Where they know the dinner of Chibarabba of Rav Yochanan by Bikadain Amrlacha Hekeshahu. It's a hekesh. It's where the placement of the two parts in the Torah is Vein Veshivin Ala Hekesh, and you can't ask questions on a hekesh. The Torah placed the two next to each other for a reason. Says the Gemara, Bishlam Adar Rachav Ganav. V'chad v'tayin tanis Ganav, second time of the Brisa. Shabbat all is good. Elaman Dar v'tayin tanis Ganav, the first time of the Brisa. Ganav atzmai minali. So now we're just lacking in the fundamental ten of the Ganav. And if you're going to suggest Lacy Bekal v'chaymer mi tayin tanis Ganav, that if tayin tanis Ganav plays kavel, certainly the Ganav himself, what am I going to tell you? Dayoi. Can never be stronger than the din itself. So says the Gemara, we're stuck in a little bit of a hard place. Answers the Gemara. Excuse me, so by Ganav it should also mean the din of Daya. You should say that even by a Ganav real, there's only Kefil Bishvua, just like Tayin Tanis Ganav. Says the Gemara, Navkale, we learned it out from Tanis Veichizkiya. With this we conclude the Tanis Veichizkiya, 2 lines at the bottom. Yoimar Shar Geneva V'Akol Bechlal, Ilukachis Yoimar, Mahabrat, Navli Mid Tanis Veichizkiya. That he learned Yomer Shar Geneva V'Akol Bichlal. The Torah could have said Shar Geneva and everything's included. Says the Gemara, you know what I would have told you? And the truth is, what we'll pick up from this kasha at the end of the Gemara, that where we learn out that what happened to Dayoy, that by Ganav itself there should only be Kefel when there is a taina of Shvuah. I'll pick it up from here in the next year. B'siyata Dishmaya.